open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo. Take time on it, though we may criticize it. This is our own, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river. That belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river. That belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people. Struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river. That belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river. That belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the road.
Honorable members, Mr. Speaker.
Please be seated. I'll invite the honorable member, Mr. Ronald Cox, to make his presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and esteemed colleagues of this August Assembly, fellow citizens of Guyana, today I rise to make my contribution to the 2025 National Budget debates. A budget presented by the Honorable Senior Minister within the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashney Singh. While I acknowledge that some steps have been taken to address the needs of our country, we cannot ignore the glaring discrepancies between the government's rhetoric and the reality faced by the many working class of Guyana. The government's budget may seem promising on paper, with bold projections of economic growth But when we scratch beneath the surface, we see a government out of touch with the everyday struggles of ordinary citizens of this country. The facts supported, of course, by empirical evidence of daily lives tell a different story. Mr. Speaker, earlier, my colleague, the Honorable Sarah Brown, attempted to highlight what she called, in my words, in my own interpretation, a paradise in Region 1 by this government. Mr. Speaker, I will not attempt, Madam Speaker, my apologies. I will not attempt to discredit her, but I'll ask some very pertinent questions that are asked every day by the citizens of this country. If indeed we are in such a glowing paradise, one, how come a healthcare center is without simple things like Panadol? Number two, how come, Madam Speaker, it is seemingly that one businessman is doing more than an entire government? He is doing so much that he has to be stopped. Madam Speaker, how come we can't afford to buy basic food as we may need? How come those school buses are operational as we speak in Marbruma to transport primary school children from their school to home? If these are the paradise, then it leaves much to desire. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, my apologies. You can sway 1,000 men by appealing to their prejudices quicker than you can convince one man by logic. Madam Speaker, we'll both agree that if some of our leaders spend more time or use their voices that they used to heckle, we'll have better presentations in this assembly. Madam Speaker, I'd like to touch on my own personal experiences, as my colleague did touch on her own. I recall, of course, everybody already know that I'm from Imbatiro. I recall paddling a canoe from Imbatiro to go to Marijuana, then walk from Marijuana for 90 minutes to get to the secondary school. And that's not under the APNO FC, that was under the PP government. And I know that my colleague, the Honorable Sarah Brown, is far younger than I am. And so all the description of her struggle she did mention earlier happened under the PP government. Madam Speaker, it is clear from examining the 2025 budget, which was presented under the theme, a secure, prosperous, and sustainable Guyana. If I were benefiting through large contracts from this government, from this budget, if my life was made luxurious by this government, by this budget, then of course I will come here and say the budget is an excellent one. I have no other choice. So despite the ambitious projection, it does not adequately address the most urgent need of the working class, farmers, vulnerable communities. This budget delivers more of the same promises that haven't been able to ease the suffering of the many ordinary Guyanese. We cannot morally support a budget that disregards the basic necessities of the Guyanese people in favor of large-scale infrastructure projects and foreign investments. It's time to shift our priorities and rethink an economic strategy that is realistic, doable, and above all, livable for the typical working person. Although the finance minister proudly lists growth rates, we must keep in mind that these estimates are based on exaggerated assumptions and heavily depend on the oil and gas sector. Our economic growth cannot be driven exclusively by oil income. We have seen this before. Our entire economy is at risk when output flutters and global oil prices decline. It is imperative that we concentrate on diversifying our economy by supporting small businesses, sectors, and of course agriculture like in my region. In addition to attracting international investment, of course, we'll move forward. We require a more sustainable and well-rounded strategy for growth, one that encourages regional entrepreneurship and generates employment outside of the oil industry. In order to ensure that all areas and industries are developed, at the same time, we will advocate for increased investment in industries, including manufacturing, tourism, agriculture, and others. The working class cannot remain vulnerable to changes and insecurity. Madam Speaker, let me quote Ram and McRae in their offering of comments on Budget 2025. And I state, open quote, the proliferation of subsidies, grants, and allowances addresses symptoms rather than causes of high living cost. We, on the other side of this house, will not seek to address symptoms. We will bring an end to the diseases itself. We will focus on the alternative government, that is, will focus on structural economic reforms as we need, rather than palliative measures. Madam Speaker, in Guyana, the cost of living has skyrocketed, and we cannot ignore that. That is factual. Many citizens can no longer afford their basic needs, like I did mention earlier. The important problem of inflation and how it directly affects the working class is not addressed in the proposed budget. Simply promising tax break or subsidies is insufficient. We also need to take concrete action to lower the cost of common products. We provide a straightforward solution, a thorough pricing management plan to stop price grouping, particularly for necessities. In order to keep living expenses under control for all Guyanese, we also need to set up subsidies for important industries like electricity and transportation. Madam Speaker, I wish to highlight a few things that was done in Region 1 under the APNU AFC while in government. Because we cannot allow ourselves to be led astray and allow the Guyanese people to feel or to believe, as was previously mentioned, that nothing was done under the APNU AFC. The APNU AFC had 5 years in government, while we were told earlier in this debate that the PB had 32 years. So you cannot at no time compare your 32 years to the APNU AFC 5 years in government. Nevertheless, in Region 1, while we are happy that the LCDS transfer are benefiting indigenous communities, we demand that an Indigenous Economic Development Committee be established under the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs, one that will effectively help our indigenous villages to plan, execute, and of course, benefit from these funds. If that is done, I'm sure that the Honorable Minister of Amerindian Affairs will not have all those petitions on her desk by village councillors calling for 2 shows to be recalled, calling for her to intervene in village councils, especially in Region 1. And I could name 2 such villages, Yarakita is one, and 4 Mile is another in Port Kaituma. Madam Speaker, under the APNU AFC, we in Region 1 witnessed a brand new hospital built in Port Kaituma with its own mortuary and a well for water supply. We also saw the Forest Solar Farm in Mabaruma. We also saw the Forest Radio Station in Mabaruma. We also saw the Forest Fire Station in Mabaruma. We also saw the forest stretches of concrete road across Region 1. We saw an increase in the hours of electricity from 5 hours to 17 hours. And of course, they made it 24 now. Of course, we are happy for that because we started the project. Madam Speaker, the San Jose Bridge in Maruca is another project under the APNUFC. The Bimichi Airstrip in Maruca is another one under the APNUFC. Forest Green Friendly Park in Mabaruma. Establishment of the Township of Mabaruma. First batch of community health workers were trained in 2018 under the APNU AFC government. And you come here to boast about how much were trained recently. Well, we're happy for the training, but you need to tell us under whose stewardship the initiative started. We are happy that you will continue with what was started, but you need to tell us. Madam Speaker, those are just some of the highlights of what we experienced under the APNO FC from 2015 to 2020. And if these are nothing was done, then I'm not sure what are we saying. Madam Speaker, earlier we heard from the Honorable Susan Rodriguez lambasting the APNO AFC members while they were in government for increasing salaries, while she herself and her colleagues are equally enjoying that right now. Madam Speaker, I call on the Honorable Susan Rodriguez and her colleague to bring a motion to this National Assembly and rescind the increase with immediate effect. If you cannot do that, then you don't stand to your words. If you do it, I will congratulate you, myself. Because we keep mentioning this since 2020, 4 years later, it is still being mentioned, but you are enjoying it. Rescind it, and we will congratulate you. Simple. Madam Speaker, the fact that many of our fellow countrymen are trying to make ends meet on the minimum wage is something we cannot ignore any longer. The majority of our workforce is employed in private sector. And although government has made progress in increasing pay for those in the public sector, this has not resulted in improvements for them. A decent minimum wage that takes into account the growing cost of living is long overdue.
Honorable
And
Member, you require 5 minutes to conclude.
Madam Speaker, I move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude this
Granted, please
presentation.
continue.
Thank you, Comrade Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is clear that the government's 2025 budget can do better. Therefore, we offer the following proposal. Inflation control measures. We must introduce policies to stabilize the cost of living. These should include price controls on essential goods, subsidies for fuel, transportation, and active management of inflationary measures through fiscal policy and strategic reserve management. Rather than focusing on limited tax cut for the wealthy and businesses, we propose implementing targeted social programs aimed at working class and vulnerable population. This includes direct cash transfer and much more than the 100,000 that is being given presently. Under an alternative government, we will see $1 million being given to every single family in this country. Expanding the cash grant system to cover large proportion of families and introducing progressive tax system that ensure the wealthy pay their shares. We propose a wage increase that is above the rate of inflation, along with an immediate review of salary scales to ensure they reflect the true cost of living in Guyana. In addition, we advocate for better working conditions, training, and professional development for all sectors of the public sector. Of course, which will boost productivity and satisfaction. Strengthening education and health care. The budget must prioritize investment in our people, of course. This means substantial increase in funding for education, as is evident in this budget, healthcare, and vocational training programs that will equip, of course, our young people with skills needed for a modern, diversified economy. Madam Speaker, we in the opposition don't have any problem with the allocated funds, especially in education. But we need equity. Indigenous communities, I always speak since 2020 for equitable distribution of our resources. And I will not cease to again call for equitable distribution. I am in the system. I am a teacher for over 20 years, and I know the system inside out. Diversification and sustainable growth. We must reduce our self-reliance on oil by diversifying the economy, as I mentioned earlier. Investment must be large in agriculture, technology, and renewable energy, which of course will create long-term sustainable jobs that support every single person in Guyana. The World Economic Forum 2023 emphasized that countries dependent on a single commodity are at significant risk of economic volatility, and Guyana must take steps to mitigate this risk. Madam Speaker, while I close, I'd like to remind the government that every single Guyanese tuned into this debate are listening. They have their own experiences, they have their own opinions, and they, of course, will make their own judgment at the end of these debates. And we call on the government side to use their time wisely to defend their budget, rather than come here to tell us what you told us in 2020. We need not a repeat. In a year where we will have general and regional elections, it is very important that we make ourselves the best choice. Madam Speaker, I trust that I have made my contributions to this budget, and I do hope that each and every one of us listening will ensure that they made a choice at the end of the debates. We cannot and we should not ignore the cries of the working class. And so, Madam Speaker, I thank you for your time, and may God bless each and every one of us.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now call on the Honorable Lee Williams to give his contribution.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A speaker who just spoke before me thought about budget need to ease the suffering, but he fails to forget that under the APNUFC, the then government imposed more taxes on the people of Guyana that create the suffering, and also ban used tires where the ordinary people cannot afford the new tires, which only the high-class ministers who receive 50% increased salary could afford the new tires, and have the low ordinary person suffer. That's the suffering you brought to the people of Guyana by banning the used tires. And there are many more, but because of time, I would not go into details. Mr. Speaker, Honorable MP boasts about projects in Region 1, but he fails to realize even if he did that project, the people of Region 1 and Guyanese vote them out to sit in the opposition side to it, and they will always remain there forever and ever and ever. Mr. Speaker, we know we're in few months away from election, and the APNU-AFC is making wild promises which they will not fulfill. If they cannot fulfill their 50% increase to public servants and pensioners, how can you fulfill $1 million to the ordinary people of Guyana? That is impossible, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so as I rise to make my contribution to Budget 2025, much has been said by my colleagues, but I want to firstly commend Honorable Dr. Ashni Kumar Singh, Senior Minister of Finance and Staff, for presenting one budget for all Guyanese as one Guyana, a budget for young and old, a budget for every category, regardless of who you are. Mr. Speaker, the leadership of the People's Progressive Party civic government since taking office has been working tirelessly to achieve prosperity for all Guyanese. Mr. Speaker, achieving prosperity for all Guyanese has been the ideal pursuit of the People's Progressive Party civic government, and is resolute to deliver its promises to every Guyanese. The PPPC government over the last 4 years has implemented such a system, such a plan for all Guyanese, and for the first people, the Amerindians, so that they can have their disposable income at their disposal, so that we can become stronger year by year. We have seen this, Madam Speaker, we have seen these transformational changes in every town, every villages across Guyana, and everyone has a share of Guyana's wealth as we move our country to a secure, prosperous, and sustainable Guyana. Madam Speaker, my contribution on Budget 2025 will more be on contrast. Honorable members on the opposition bench, over the last budget debate has been speaking on the budget not being people-centered, lack of equity, lack of equality, and so on. But lest we forget that under their government, 2015 to 2020, which they are not happy to hear, the period, their budget was self-centered, where they increased their minister's salary 50% in 100 days in office after making empty promises, not only to the public servants, but to our elderly people, but to the Guyanese population also, a good life for all Guyanese. In contrast, Madam Speaker, the PPPC government since taking office in latter part of 2020 to now has delivered, fulfilled, implement programs and policies to all Guyanese across the country, from coastland to the hinterland. Mr. Speaker, my time is allotted to me will not give me chance to speak on every developmental agenda in the hinterland, but allow me to give some of the contrasts that the PPPC government has delivered. Mr. Speaker, in 2015, APNU-AFC come to the youths and tell them, I have a poster here, youths, it's time for vote for job. Coincidentally, there's a poster at the bottom, nothing to laugh about, but there's a shame on the APNU-AFC. Vote, youth, it's time for vote for job, but they come to us, to the youth, that says, the government cannot provide job, but emphasis to sell plantain chip and cook up rice. Mr. Speaker, the youths can now feel relief and feel secured under the People's Progressive Party civic. Mr. Speaker, The People's Progressive Party civic government, since taking office, it reintroduced Community Support Officers Program immediately, and to date, over 2,700 youths across the country is benefiting from this initiative. That the CSO program has been increased by 50% to support Village Council, from 10 to 15 CSOs in villages. And Mr. Speaker, and further, Mr. Speaker, the government has increased their stipend 33.3%. I know the opposition will have a problem in calculation, but it is from $30,000 to $40,000 for the CSOs. Mr. Speaker, Amerindian development is vital to the PPPC government, and so, Madam Speaker, the government of Guyana, through Low Carbon Development Strategy 2030, has significantly injected in 2013 15%, and in 2024 26.5% of carbon credit into over 220 Amerindian villages, which resulted over $9.5 billion for the sustainable project in their respective village. Here are a few pictures of the project that has been undertaken by villages under the LCD's carbon credit. These are the facts that I'm showing so that you will not say where and how it's being spent. Mr. Speaker, the APNU AFC, upon assuming office in 2015 to 2020, give 0% towards Amerindian Development Program under their Green State Development Strategy, which was fruitless, visionless, and under the incompetent APNU AFC government. Mr. Speaker, communication technology in the hinterland was a major challenge in Amerindian villages. And today, as I speak, I would like to commend the Prime Minister and staff of the Office of the Prime Minister, by extension, the People's Progressive Party civic government, for delivering high-speed internet in the villages where the youth, CSOs, community can enjoy free Wi-Fi to communicate to their families. Not only to communicate, Madam Speaker, but we have CPC trainees, trainee nurses are pursuing their studies online from home from this government free Wi-Fi initiative. And I have here youth using the free Wi-Fi, the CSOs, they're using the free Wi-Fi. Not only one, but we have 20 laptops, 20 youths using this free Wi-Fi. Madam Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the well-being of our people is paramount to the People's Progressive Party civic government. To date, Guyana's government has trained a number of CHWs in the hinterland and nurses and midwives serving their respective village. There are more than one CHWs, medics, midwives, serving the people through health services. Madam Speaker, the government has invested huge budget to improve health facilities across the country, including Bartica and Kamrang District Hospital, where the People's Progressive Party civic has constructed surgical theater, and the first time in Upper Mazruni in 2024, there were 37 surgeries successfully performed at Kamrang District Hospital. That brings relief to patients. They were treated and sent home than to travel to Georgetown Public Hospital from their families. Mr. Speaker, the communication and health sector has improved in the hinterland. The health personnel from health facilities can now communicate to their supervisors and seek advice on patients using telemedicine in Amerindian villages, including villages in Upper Mazruni. As of yesterday, telemedicine was installed in the village of Kako, where Honorable Don Hastings resides. So we have a telemedicine in Kako recently installed by the Ministry of Health. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to education. Apart from all infrastructure development in education sector, where new secondary school will be built in the hinterland, 2 secondary schools in Upper Mazruni, Region 7 will be built in Jawala and in Philippi to minimize overcrowding at Desiree Caesar Fox Secondary School. Madam Speaker, the PPPC government has restored and incrementally increased Because We Care cash grant program after the APNU AFC squashed the program and take away disposable income from the school children and their parents. That affects families who were unfortunate to maintain their school children for some reason. Today, the parents of all school children feel relief because their disposable income has increased incrementally. Madam Speaker, for the viewers to understand the track record of two governments, let me present to this House bar graph, because apparently the opposition seem not to understand the budget. In 2015 to 2020, in 2014, the People's Progressive Party Civic started 10,000 cash grant, and the APNU AFC squashed the program and give the school children the $2,000 cash voucher. You see the graph? 80% reduction from $10,000 to $2,000. Deduction, decrease from $10,000 to $2,000. 80% decrease. And then People's Progressive Party Civic took office in 2020. We started with $2,000 cash voucher, and we increased it to $15,000, 650% increase. In 2022, it increased to $25,000, 66.6%. In 2023, 40% to $35,000. In 2024, 28.5% to $45,000. And in 2025, we have 22.2%, $55,000. That's the story of the People's Progressive Party Civic. So if you want to prove, you can have your APNU graph and keep it as your record. Madam Speaker, as we turn to our national cash grant, the government has implemented measures to help citizens not only to have cash grant, but to increase their disposable income for every Guyanese since assuming office in 2020. This includes $25,000 per household, $200,000 cash grant for every household. Guyanese citizen 18 years and over. Mr. Speaker, today, Honorable Member of Parliament, Ms. Fernandes, come to this House speaking about poverty. Today, I want to inform this House and the entire nation that the cash grant distribution is still underway across the country. And of today, in Upper Mazaruni, first phase of distribution is still in progress, where 5 villages have already received their cash grant. Kako Village, $33.8 million to the pockets of our friends, family, and favorites. Kamrang, $54.7 million to the pockets of our friends, Amerindian friends, family, and favorites. Waramadang, $55 million to our Amerindian family, friends, and favorites. Prima, $31.1 million to our Amerindian friends, family, and favorites. While some yet to receive their cash grant, the PPPC government has assured that no one will be left out from this initiative. Mr. Speaker, the People's Progressive Party Civic Government has shown to the Guyanese population their competence in delivering their promises. The AFC has come with a slogan, better must come. AFC is coming with a better must come, but I want to tell you, the opposition, you better don't come here, because Guyana is progressing fast under the leadership of People's Progressive Party Civic Government. I'll make use of my time, so I'll take my time, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Member,
Madam Speaker,
to conclude, you will need 5 minutes.
okay.
Madam Speaker, I would like to ask that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude his presentation.
Thank you. Go ahead, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I encourage the opposition to use their conscience, like their former PNC comrade who publicly say, and I quote from his Sum of Expert, "The One Guyana initiative is not only a mere promise, it is actively working to build a more cohesive nation. A group within our population are benefiting from increased access to nation's wealth. There has been a notable effort for fostering young entrepreneurs, enhancing sporting and cultural facilities, and providing seed capital for small businesses The desire for progress is at the heart of the leadership of the People's Progressive Party Civic Government. I urge all Guyanese, regardless of race, political affiliation, or any other factor, to support the People's Progressive Party Civic. Give them the mandate to serve our great country for another term. So, Mr. Speaker, with all being said, I ask the members of the opposition bench to look our track record and join me and commend and support Budget 2025 to be passed, stronger together for a better Guyana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now call on the Honorable Member Ferasami. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good evening, everyone. I stand this evening in this august House as a proud representative of the People's Progressive Party Civic, representing the people of our country. On the onset, I want to say that this budget is about people and country. It has something for everyone, and its gender mainstreaming component ensures that women benefit equitably. In the 4 years prior from 2020 to now, the PPP civic government has fulfilled its manifesto promises and delivered beyond our people's expectations. Madam, permit me to join my colleagues to convey my congratulations to my comrade, the Honorable Dr. Ashni Singh, for such a well-thought-out strategic plan for our country. You, my comrade, delivered in your eloquent style Budget 2025, offering our people goodwill, increased wages, salaries, improved conditions of living, wealth creation through education, skills training, job creation, entrepreneurship, and so much more. This budget will ensure that our people live longer, healthier lives because of the top-of-the-line healthcare services to be provided across our country. Gradually, the disparity in the healthcare system will be removed between rural, urban, and hinterland areas. I would like to extend gratitude to the staff across government and the Ministry of Finance who prepared Budget 2025. We are here promoting and defending your social sectorial projections so that you can continue to provide the services that our people deserve. Madam Speaker, Guyanese voted and returned the PPP Civic to office in 2020 because our manifesto plan resonated with their goals. During the 2015-2020 APNU AFC forced them to live or relive the pre-1992 era, the era of fear and hardship. APNU failed the promises and draconian taxes suppressed our people and strangled our economy. Businesses closed its doors and scaled down its operations, and thousands of people lost their jobs. They shut down the sugar estates and forced thousands of people on the breadline, and they did not spare the people they loved the most. They caused the closure of Rusal, the call center that employed mostly women, and the logging company. A large number of Lindeners were thrown out of work and put on the breadline. Madam Speaker, because Lindeners are our friends, our families, and our favorites of the People's Progressive Party Civic, we recreated the opportunities to for thousands of them to be re-employed. Today, the bauxite company has become viable, and so will Gaisuku in the near future. With the PPP Civic at the helm of our government, our people know that life is easier because they could have celebrated democracy and freedom. Freedom in this country is like breathing clean air. Something that is, something, Annette, that your party don't know about. With the PPP Civic, I'm repeating, With the PPP Civic at the helm of our government, our people know that life is easier because they could celebrate democracy and freedom. We don't go about fooling people, and we don't give them promises of a good life. We are actually working night and day to give them a good life. Madam, over the past week, the opposition has been trying to spew assertions on Budget 2025. Yes, I agree. People don't eat roads, according to the opposition leader. But asphalted and concrete roads and bridges saves time and money for families. Car owners save money when the cars are not damaged, so they go less to the mechanic. And most importantly, it saves people time getting from one place to another, including work. Sir, madam, time means money. Time is very precious for women who are full-time students or employees, especially if they are parents. Time saved from traveling can be spent with children and family. Madam Speaker, history of our country will always associate itself with the PPP and the PPP civic government with development. No amount of name changing will change the fact that PNC or PNCR or PNC and APNU AFC will always be associated with rigged elections, fear and failure. Madam Speaker, as soon as the PPP civic government assumed office in 1992, remember this, the means test was abolished and everyone over 65 were granted their old age pension. Sir, in 2015, APNU AFC promised to double the old age pension, and 5 years later, this is the result. They increased old age pension by $7,375 or 36%. And 5 years later, which moved the pension from $13,125 to $20,500. Their economic policies pushed elders into abject poverty. Let me explain, madam. They imposed 14% VAT on all food items, drugs, and medical supplies. I have to remind you, comrade, because you seem to forget this. They imposed 14% VAT on all items, drugs, and medical supplies, on water and electricity, telephone, data, and internet. They further took away the water and electricity subsidy. During the same period, they increased public assistance by only 20% from $8,000 to $10,000. Madam, this is what the PPP Civic did for pensioners since 2020. We increased it from $20,500 to $41,000, or by 100%. This is a manifesto promise kept. Further, VAT was removed from water, electricity, telephone, data, internet, drugs, medical supplies, and so many other food items. And yet you come here and say, we do nothing for elders, but we have them living in poverty. Madam, the opposition needs to conduct an assessment to understand the real total of old age pension, not like what they did. They add and multiply and subtract, and then they give the people the $13,000. Between 2020 to 2025, the PPP Civic increased public assistance by 120% or 100% more, from $10,000 to $22,000 monthly. Madam, vulnerable people clearly understand which government they are better off under. Madam, in 2020, our PPP Civic government unveiled its manifesto plans in Budget 2020 under the theme, Our Plan for Prosperity. In 2025, we continue our country's development trajectory under the theme, A Secure, Prosperous, and Sustainable Guyana. This proves that the PPP Civic Manifesto and our group of hardworking, vibrant leaders, headed by His Excellency the President, Dr. Muhammad Irfan Ali, and our Vice President and General Secretary of the PPP, Dr. Bara Jagdev, proved that they have what it takes to transform Guyana into a modern country. We will continue to work hard with the people of Guyana, for the people of Guyana, to improve their lives. In our 5th year in government, the PPP Civic not only removed VAT from more than 200 items, but we have not imposed a single tax on our people in all these 5 years. Our prudent measures instead put billions of dollars in disposable income each year into the hands of our people. Over the last 4 years, people can see development and progress in every sphere, even though the government had to deal with more than 2 years of coronavirus pandemic, flood, drought, and threat from Venezuela. Madam, part of my job is to be with our people, to listen to their criticism and recommendations, to provide answers to their questions, but more than that, to be with our people and involve them in nation building. Madam Speaker, recognizing that culture and tradition kept women behind in every sphere of society, the PPP Civic invested heavily in education and training because it knows that education is the key that will bring women and our people out of poverty. We must remember that Guyana achieved universal primary education by the year 2014, and government is working to achieve universal secondary education. The Ministry of Education has invested heavily in teachers training across Guyana over the last 4 years. Approximately 4,378 teachers were trained, and the ministry is introducing new teaching methods and smart classrooms for our students. All courses at the University of Guyana will be free commencing this year. And since 2024, all student loans are being written off, another manifesto promise kept. Our manifesto promised 20,000 scholarship targets has been surpassed with over 29,758 scholarships. Of this, 21,436 of these persons, or 72% of the beneficiaries, are women. This is something I cannot find words to thank the People's Progressive Party for. While the formal school system prepares children for higher education, the Guyana Women's Leadership Institute developed courses for women and girls who drop out from school under the Women Innovation and Investment Network. The courses aim to empower women and girls with accredited technical and vocational training, entrepreneurial skills, and access to financing opportunities. The very long list of courses offered is accessible to women across Guyana. From 2021 to 2024, over 12,000 women have been trained. The Board of Industrial Training trained 5,077 males and 7,688 females. Again, we have seen that 60% women benefited from these courses, taking women to another level in our country. This is promoting gender inclusivity in a male-dominated profession. Madam, to include those persons who had to leave school for various reasons and couldn't find jobs in the formal establishment, when the National Pathway Workers Program was created. Since 2022, 10,751 persons were employed, or more than 75% were women. And in 2024, this number rose to 15,283 persons. That is the same 75%. Sir, this pathway work is creating wealth for low-income workers in Guyana, especially for women. They work in community enhancement. They function as clerks and receptionists in offices, especially in an environment where we have short labor. To have people living longer, healthier lives, the promise of decentralizing our healthcare services to every region is a manifesto promise kept. 6 of the 12 regional hospitals will be open later this year. And the opposition, Madam Speaker, is talking about where are we going to get people to staff these hospitals. Well, the answer was out there because the Minister of Health, Dr. Anthony, said that of the thousands of medical professionals graduating this year from local and international institutions, those will be placed in those hospitals. And if more is needed, healthcare workers will be hired from other countries. People are taking our workers, so we will now try to get back some of them. Madam Speaker, the PPP civic government has been working since 1992 to help our people to become homeowners. And this intensified in the last 4 years with 290 house lots, and over 2,000 homes built for new homeowners. Madam Speaker, of this amount, 18,530 house lots, or 46%, were allocated to women. There was a time in our country, Madam Speaker, when women owned no property, and all property was owned by men. Madam Speaker, do not forget that during 2015 period, APNU AFC almost closed down the housing ministry, and they barely handed out 7,534 house lots, and they cut the ceiling for loans so people couldn't get to build a certain level or a certain building, certain size of building, because they want to keep people to their place. You know, low-income people have a place, they want to keep them there. So, Madam Speaker, in pre-1992 period, under the PNC, women spent hours fetching water. Today, 98.3% of our women are getting water in their homes.
You
They're getting
require
water
5
in their
minutes to
homes.
conclude now.
Madam Speaker, the
Honorable member. Honorable member, in order to conclude.
Madam Speaker, I ask that the honorable member be granted a 5-minute extension.
Thank you very much. You have 5 minutes to conclude.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam, please permit me to share in this August House a subject matter that we don't talk much about. The Ministry of Human Services and Social Security, of which I am a part, works with people who lost hope and wants to give up, who sometimes feel that they have no one and nowhere to turn. Madam, the ministry has several departments that deal with the softer side of society, a side that people only believe distribute old age pension and public assistance vouchers. Madam, this ministry has staff who hold hands, heal hearts, give hope to people who are homeless, who do not have the ability sometimes to look to the future with optimism. After spending time at the night shelter, training are sought for them through the Board of Industrial Training and other institutions. They are linked with jobs, and we try to reintegrate them with families, and many of them reintegrate into society as productive members of society. Madam, these departments are the Palms Geriatric Home, the Hugo Chavez Home for Rehabilitation and Reintegration, and the night shelter. Our staff goes to the street with support from the Guyana Police Force, the mental health clinic, chest clinic, and we remove people and we bring them to the night shelter. We offer them a bed, a warm meal, and a bath. We provide them with medical evaluation, psychiatric care, and TB assessment. Then we ensure that they receive treatment. Those hospitalized are treated, stabilized, and transferred back to the night shelter. Depending on the casework, elders over 60 are transferred to the geriatric home, which is the Palms, and those under 60, some of them are transferred to Chavez Home at Anvawa, where specific care is provided. Madam, living on the streets causes people to develop certain types of antisocial behavior, chronic and terminal diseases. Many of them didn't see the doctor for decades and receive no treatment. Interventions by the staff of the night shelter and Chavez Home must be commended. They work beyond the call of duty to ensure that the homeless are provided with care and empathy. Most of them who are removed from the streets were abandoned by their families. Madam, people tend to find themselves homeless for various reasons, and due to this, they develop anger issues. They go on the street because of family problems, domestic violence, drug abuse, alcoholics, HIV, TB, mental illness, and others. I would like to thank the staff of the Ministry of Health, GPHC, the Regional Health Services, and staff of every department in the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security for helping heal the bodies of these people while we work to heal their minds. The night shelter is a premier institution of its kind that will become a shining example of what care for the vulnerable is all about. We arrange surgeries for fractures, cataract, hernia, urology intervention, monitor hospitalization for those admitted with chronic disease and other. The night shelter has many beautiful stories to tell about the people who live there. But I don't have the time to do so here, madam. So I would like to thank our president and our government for providing the funding and safe haven for this vulnerable group. I look forward for more support in the years ahead. Madam Speaker, before I end my presentation, I would like to commend this budget to this House for approval.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Let me take this opportunity. Thank you, Honorable Member. Let me congratulate the speakers who went today. So with this, it concludes our business of today. Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask that we adjourn the sitting of the House of Assembly to Monday, 27th January 2025 at 10 a.m.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. I now move the adjournment of the National Assembly to Monday, the 27th, 10 a.m. Thank you.
Taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no